It's early and it's cold out. Let's get after it. All right, guys, we're back. It is early, but that's nice because I think I got basically a whole day to work on the car today. So theoretically, we should be able to get something done. Probably won't, but we'll give it a shot. So it's still cold outside. It's like minus 35 Celsius. There's like 4 inches of snow on the ground. So we got a little bit of time to clean some things up on the car before it's time for our first drive. So I've been going through and making a list. You guys probably can't read that. Of course you can't read that. So I got a whole bunch of little things to take care of. Everything from like putting nylock bolts on, or nylock nuts on, rather than like the standard thread nuts, and like cleaning up some shims, cleaning up the wiring and whatnot. But rather than run you through the whole list, we're gonna just kind of check them off as we go. So first thing we need to do is we need to put this drive shaft in. Pat's Driveline hooked us up. We gave them the kind of the stub shaft, this one that came with the motor. I thought they could reuse that yoke. Turns out they couldn't. It's a non-serviceable yoke. So they found me a yoke with the proper spline pattern on the inside to match our Nissan transmission that has the standard U-joint sizes. So that way our U-joints are the same size end to end. So if we ever have to service them, they're pretty easy to punch the caps out and pull them apart. And then they found a companion flange that'll fit on the Explorer 8.8 diff. So they also hooked us up with the proper Ford bolts for this guy. So first things first, let's put in our drive shaft. These bolts are being a little bit sticky going into the companion flange, so we're just gonna chase the threads real quick. Remember, these are a metric thread on the forward rear ends, so use a metric tap. All right, drive shaft's in. Took way longer than it should have because I had to tap those holes and I couldn't fit the little like T-wrench spinny doodad thing in there because we got too much chassis, I guess, in the way. But we got them done, and I also had to go and dig my 12-point sockets out of the toolbox in my truck because Ford uses 12-point hardware. They're not torqued down because they're gonna come off as soon as we go for a little drive anyhow. So they're just on there like tight. So that's done. Next step is we need to do we need to finish up this throttle pedal arrangement thing that we got going on. So this is the, I don't know if you guys can see, that's the correct spot for the hole. But because of the way that this is shaped, we can only put one of these bolts in, which is not enough. So I'm gonna actually take a chunk of this flat bar and weld a section to it so that we can have full engagement on all three of these posts so that our throttle plate stays where it needs to be. So let's whip out the welder and we'll do that one. That's the right spot. All right, throttle pedal works. We're gonna work on the other end now. So up until now, we've just had this throttle cable kind of stuck through the side of our throttle plate cam because there's like this goofy little like extra doubler thing that doesn't allow the cable to go all the way through. All right, throttle cable is done. The cam is cut, and then the pedal works. Everything's working. The one thing that we do have to do yet is there's the little L bracket that holds the cable up on the pedal box bracket. We need to do some bracing and fully weld it on. It's just held on with like 2 tack welds, but that's gonna be way easier with that bracket out of the car. So we're gonna just cross our fingers and hope that those 2 little tack welds hold for a little rip around the block, and then we can that startled the crap out of me. All right, so yeah, we're just gonna trust those 2 little tack welds to hold, and then we'll strip the whole car down and we'll weld that bracket when it's out of the car. So the next project that I wanna get started on, knowing full well that we're not gonna get it finished this episode, is mounting the driver's seat. I went to the junkyard the other day and got ourselves some seat sliders. These are out of like I think they're out of like a mid-90s luxury Acura of some sort, but they should work pretty well for us. They're pretty basic. There's just like a little adjuster lever on the side here. There's 2 of them, and then they got like kind of the crossbar that goes between them. So we need to mount these in the car, and then we need to mount the seat to these. So it's gonna involve a whole bunch of bracketry. These mounted, there's they got like a bolt mount for mounting into the car, and then there's like a post here and a hole here that the seat mounted to. None of those are gonna work for us. So we're gonna cut all that off because we don't have a old Acura luxury car. We're gonna hack all that off and build ourselves some new brackets. We want these to be mounted nice and low in the car, so we'll have to kind of do some weird hanging brackets probably. And then we need to weld in the crossbars into the actual chassis that these are gonna mount on. So a lot of work to get the seat mounted. I only got one set. I did try to get the passenger side out of the same car, but they were different. I don't know why. Maybe they thought that the driver needed more security. I don't know, but the passenger side was quite a bit different, and I would have had to cut the seat apart to get them out. So I only got one set. I'm not sure yet if we're gonna make our passenger seat slide or not. It is kind of nice when you're a small person to be able to slide forward a little bit and be a little bit more comfy in there. But it is just more complexity and more weight, etc., etc. So we might just hard mount the passenger seat. We'll see. But we need the driver's seat to move. So let's hack off some of these brackets, get these things cleaned up, and come up with a plan. All right, I test fit our rails into the bottom of the car, and we're actually gonna get lucky. This is the front. There we go. So the back here, we can actually butt it right up against the rear bulkhead, and then what we'll be able to do is just weld a flat plate on the end of this lower section, and then put 2 bolts through into the rear bulkhead. We will lose a little bit of travel off of the rails, so when they go all the way back, I don't know if you guys can see that black on black, the top slider piece actually extends like, I can take a measure, 2.5 inches out the end. So when we cap off that end, we'll lose about 2.5 inches of travel. But these things actually got quite a bit. Like they actually get about 9.5 inches of travel. So losing a little bit of travel is probably not gonna be the worst thing in the world. I did go through and mark out what that's gonna look like in the car. So, move you guys over here. So that's the seat all the way up against the rear bulkhead. And then that's 9.5 inches of travel. So like, that's ridiculous. We don't need that much. So when we cut it down, we'll only get about that much travel, which is still more than enough for even one of the shorter people in my life to drive, I'm sure. If not, you know, we can get them a cushion. So that's all well and good. The next step though is I gotta figure out how to remove this center section, the slider section from the base, because we're gonna have to do a bunch of welding on these things. It'd be nice to pull them apart. There's a set of roller bearings in here. I don't really want to weld with those in there. There's also, this is all full of grease, so if we go and try to weld it, we're gonna get massive contamination, and there's no good way to clean it. So I'm gonna do a little bit of research. Everything I've seen says it's pretty easy to pull these apart. They're just like a drawer slide on like your toolbox, but some of them got little latches, some of them you gotta like work a little piece out. I don't know, I gotta figure it out, but right now it hits a hard stop in both directions. So I'm gonna do a bit of research, figure that out, and then I'll come back to you guys. All right, change of plans. I spent all afternoon yesterday trying to figure out how to disassemble these. I think the only thing I'm gonna be able to do is break them if I keep on down that path. So new plan is we're just gonna weld the brackets to these while they're assembled. I know that I might, you know, catch the grease on fire, but whatever. And then when we're done, we'll flush them all out with degreaser, get all the grease out of there, and then just re-grease the slides and cross our fingers. So bracketry wise, we need to put a plate on this end, and then we need to put a piece of angle iron on the front, and we need to put a crossbar into our chassis for the front of these to mount on. What I think we're gonna do, I need a prop. All right, so what I think we're gonna do is, if this is the back, we're gonna mount that to the rear bulkhead, basically flush with the floor, and then we're gonna run a cross beam of our 1x1, and then we're gonna mount the front on top of that. So it's gonna give our rails just a slight angle up when they go forward. Theoretically, if you're moving the seat forward because you got short legs, you probably got a short torso too, so moving it up a little bit wouldn't hurt. The other thing that's gonna allow us to do is we'll just take a piece of angle iron and weld it to the bottom of our seat sliders. That'll then sit on top of that 1x1, which will give us like a positive forward stop. And then the rear bracket, oh Jesus. The rear bracket, we're gonna make it out of flat bar with maybe a little bend in it so that there's a little bit of flex there because it's gonna get bolted in tension. So that's the plan. We're just gonna cross our fingers and have at it. So first things first though, is we need to get our square bar, or square tubing, welded into the car. We got the crossbars welded in to the floor. I realized I made a huge mistake in that I didn't drill any holes in them before we put them in. And we won't be able to drill any holes without pulling the floor pans out. So we might have to pull the floor pans out. But the next step is we need to build some brackets to hold this guy onto that crossbar. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a chunk of angle iron and we're gonna weld it. This is the front. We're gonna weld it on here like that. Well, it'll be at a bit of an angle, but anyhow, you get the idea. So we'll get welded on the bottom like that, so that if we were ever in a car crash and the seat tried to move forward, it's got like a solid bearing surface to bump up against the chassis. And then we'll drill a couple holes in here and bolt it to that, that crossbar, and our bolts will go front to back so that we can access them, and so we don't have any bolts sticking out the bottom and possibly getting sheared off if we, run it over a, I don't know, whatever, speed bump. And then on the back, we'll put a strap and yada, yada, yada. You know all about that one. Now, I got started on this guy. I build all of my brackets, or most of my brackets, out of this. This is an old bed frame. The reason I do that is because these are cheap. I got a rich buddy named Scott who just throws these in the garbage. So I go to his house and steal all his old bed frames. The problem is that they're like a weird, I don't know, they're a weird dimension. So you end up having to trim off both ends, and then also the inside is like this. There's a big radius on the inside of the angle. So in order to fit the square tubing up, you actually have to come in and grind that bottom corner up. So it's a lot of work, it's a huge pain in the butt, but I have more time than I have money. So this is what we're using for it. So I gotta start on one, pretty simple, and then we'll drill a couple holes in it, and then we'll build the back ones as well at the same time, and then we'll just weld them all while the parts are in the car. So let's do it. Well, I've once again proven I am not a machinist, and I broke the bit off inside my workpiece. It went all the way through one piece. I had two pieces stacked on top of each other, and went all the way through the one, but not quite through the other, and shattered. So luckily, safety third, fourth maybe. But anyhow, so it has kind of, I don't know if you guys, there, I'll put it right by the window. You see a little nub on the top? It has punched through most of the way. So what I'm gonna try to do is just take my flapper wheel and grind that little nubbin off, and hopefully the drill bit's right underneath that, and then I can just take a pin punch and knock it out this way. But lesson learned, don't drill holes like I do. Don't take any advice from me. Don't do things like I do it. Just break bits and taps and tools. All right, I went through and enlarged the holes on these guys. I got that drill bit out, that was easy. Enlarged the holes, I did it off camera so that nobody would yell at me for using gloves at the drill press. And then I was just getting ready to kind of start jigging up how we're gonna weld these together when I realized Acura threw me a curveball on this one. Not only are the seat sliders different from the passenger to the driver's side, but the actual sliders themselves on the driver's side are different sizes as well. So what side would this be? This would be the driver's side, right-hand side is 1.5 inches by 1.1 tall, and the driver's side, left-hand side is 1.4 wide by 0.9 tall. So I know why they did it. So this is the side, this one's bigger than this one, and this is the side that the seatbelt mounts to. So obviously they made it beefier to accommodate the seatbelt. But like, come on, just make them both big. Like, why did we have to make this one little? So it's gonna be a pain in the butt. But we're gonna figure it out. So what we'll do is we'll jig up and weld up this one first with the tabs. I checked and the lengths are the same, so we got lucky on that one, you know, something went right. And then what we'll have to do is we'll have to shim this one up a little bit in order to get it to line up. I imagine I can have a little bit of misalignment and it won't be a huge deal, but we're gonna try to keep that as little as possible. So we'll weld this guy up and then we'll figure out how to jig this one to make it the same. I don't know, this is just, it's bizarre. All right, we got those all welded up. I did have to space the other one up. Basically just used a chunk of 1/8 inch flat bar to space it up. They're all welded up, they fit really good. The next step is going to be, I need a bracket that goes on top of here that I can bolt to my seat. I also need to get rid of this. So with this on there, it pushes my seat up a little bit higher than I want it to be. But this little bracket is actually for the spring that holds the whole works up so that it doesn't just randomly slide out on you. So I might have to relocate that spring or come up with something else in order to hold it. But we gotta remove that. We're gonna remove this bracket here because it's for the seat belt, which we don't need. We're gonna retain this hole, and there's a stud on the front here. I need to get a metric nut to go in there because I didn't grab those from the junkyard like an idiot. But that's how we're gonna mount a bracket on top of this, that then our seat will bolt onto that that third bracket. I don't know, it's just a stack of brackets. But these are all good to go. They fit good in the car. As predicted, they lit on fire a couple times, so it's super smoky out here. And yeah, so we're ready to go. I don't have time to build that bracket today, so that's gonna be next episode. I'm not 100% sure if we're gonna keep those. They're a little bit tall for what I want, but that's why everything's bolt in, bolt out. So that's it for this week, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna leave this shop because it is full of smoke, and I'm gonna catch up with you guys later. If you like what we do here, like and subscribe. If you really like what we do here and you wanna support the channel, there's a Patreon link below. Patreons get all these movies a week early. So that's it. I'll see you guys next episode. I'm out of here.